What's up, guys? So before we start, I just want to give you guys a little intro to the intro. This has been the hardest instructional that I've had to film so far. I've lost so much sleep over this to try to make it perfect for you guys. I can't even explain the difficulties we went through. So this is the intro where I'm going to explain to you that originally we were going to plan just one open guard instructional where it's open guard start to finish, and like we did for passing, like not body lock passing is one, half guard passing is another, passing the heave is another. We just did passing guard as one instructional. The issue that we quickly ran into with open guard is that if I was to film everything in one instructional, it would have been way too long. All right, there would have been a situation where you had a 15+ hour video and people would be fast forwarding to spots they want to see, to transitions they want to look at, and then things wouldn't make sense if you don't watch it from start to finish. It doesn't make sense because I go over some things sometimes in the beginning and I don't cover them again at the end. So if you're watching hours 12 to 14, things won't make sense because I already covered them in hours 1 to 14, 1 to 12. So instead, I decided to break it into two videos, which will be about 7 hours long each. Okay, so what I did basically is I'm breaking this first one into a seated guard, and then we're covering supine guard in the next one. So a seated guard will cover seated versus standing. Okay, where that's me seated versus her standing, me seated versus her kneeling, and me seated versus her with one knee up. Supine will cover me versus her standing over me with different leg positions. Ashigaramis, different variations of ashigaramis, different variations of X guards, and different transitions from delahiva and reverse delahiva. Okay? You'll also notice a change in scenery. Okay, so before the change in scenery, just know if you see me referencing something in the first part of the seated instructional where I'm saying, oh, I entered into Ashigarami, I'll show you guys how to do this later in the instructional, just know the original plan wasn't to do two different instructionals. It was to do one. So if I'm speaking as if I'm going to show you guys something and then I don't show it to you in the rest of the seated instructional, just know it's coming in the supine instructional. So if that sounds confusing, just know this is the reason why. Okay, but we did like 4 hours of filming that I wasn't going to just let go to waste. So we're going to include that in here. Okay, now we also started filming before the coronavirus lockdown happened. And we started filming in one location, and that location is now closed, so we're filming in a different location. So after this clip, you're going to start off, we're going to be in a different location, then we're going to get about halfway through, and then we're going to come back to this location, and we're going to have a little change of scenery. So just so you guys understand that. Not that it's a big deal, because you guys come here not to look at cool mats or rash guards, you come here to learn jiu-jitsu. Okay, that's what the goal is. I'm just trying to make you guys better at grappling, so the scenery and the clothing don't really matter. Okay, so I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update on what's happening, why it's happening, and just a series of events that have taken place to get me to doing this intro. So hopefully you guys enjoy. What should kick off now is the intro into seated guard, which is the intro into open guard, which I was talking about. That should kick off now, and then we'll start going from there. And we get I'm pretty sure we get to finish dealing with staggered stance and a square stance, and then we'll kick back to this location for introduction to sumigeshis. Okay? Hopefully that made sense. Hey guys, Gordon Ryan and Sonny here, and we are bringing to you everything you ever needed to know about open guard. First, let's talk about how my open guard is different from everyone else's. When you see people play in open guard, for the most part, it's especially in a seated position. It's a person on bottom in a square stance, waiting for the person on top to engage them.
Okay, so essentially, the onus is on the top player to come forward and create pressure. The biggest question I always get is, what should I be doing against someone who's not looking to engage me? Okay, so my goal for you at the end of this video is to show you how you can create pressure from a bottom position. What everyone always talks about is putting pressure from top position, smash passing people, putting pressure from half guard. But the question is, how can we create pressure from a bottom position on an opponent who's not willing to engage us? Okay, and the answer to that is the combination of ashiwaza, foot techniques, and teiwaza, hand techniques. Okay, just as in the standing position, you should be good at foot sweeping and grabbing the legs, so too with ground position. Okay, if my partner's standing up over me, and we're in a position, I should be good with playing with my partner's feet and harassing my partner's feet to get her off balance, as well as coming in and grabbing into the legs and shooting into the legs. Same thing when we're playing an open guard. I should be able to combine harassing my partner's feet with my feet coming in, and as well as coming through and using my hands to start harassing my partner's feet and constantly getting my partner off balance. Okay. What we're looking to do is to keep my partner constantly off balance and to not have her be in a position where she's set in front of me and not just ready to jump past my legs or come through and smash me into a position where she can go into half guard passing or butterfly passing, whatever the case is. So a big emphasis in this instructional is to be the combination of ashiwaza techniques, foot techniques, and teiwaza, hand techniques, to constantly off balance your partner and go into attacks on both sweeps, submissions, and back takes, as well as bridging the gap from always the upper body to the lower body and the lower body to the upper body. Okay, if my partner, for example, goes to pull the upper body away, the lower body is always there. If my partner, for example, goes to sprawl the lower body back and away from me, she goes to sprawl, she falls to her knees, for example, now the upper body is always there and we can go into attacks. Okay, so we're going to talk more about what our goals are, but I just wanted to first give you guys a little introduction on what we're doing differently than everybody else. Okay, and the key to this instructional is, how can we create pressure from bottom position on someone who doesn't want to engage us? Okay, you've all watched my matches. Everyone knows I'm dangerous, and they know that if they actually engage me, that they're going to get swept or submitted. So what everyone does is they play a game which gives the illusion that they're engaging, but they don't actually come forward and do jujitsu. And you saw this, in my Bushation match. In the first 2 minutes, he came forward, he tried to engage, got swept into mount, and then it was 28 minutes of him, pitter-pattering on the outside and not really trying to come in and actually, pass my guard and submit me. So that's what the whole foundation of this instructional is how to create pressure from a bottom position. Okay, now let's talk some more about what our goals are and what situations we can find ourselves in during open guard situations. Okay, so before we go into techniques, we have to talk about both body positions of our opponent and some goal-setting ideas. When we're in a seated guard, we have 4 main positions that we're going to break our opponent's stance up into. Okay, the first is an opponent standing above me with a square stance. Our partner has square hips, square feet, and her heels are on the same axis like so. Okay, this is the first position. Second position is a standing opponent with a staggered stance, where now from here, my partner has one leg forward, one leg backwards, and we have to deal with our opponent in this position. Third is an opponent on 2 knees in front of me. And fourth is an opponent with one leg up, like this. Okay, so these are going to be the 4 main positions we're working from when we're dealing with open guard and looking to off-balance our opponents. When my opponent stands up square like so, we're looking to enter into our partner's legs. Okay, we'll talk about this more in goal setting, where we have our partner's center line exposed. Okay, when my partner has one leg backwards, or one leg back and one leg forward, now there's no center line exposure. So now we have to either look to expose our partner's back or expose our partner's center line. Okay, when our partner's down on 2 knees, now it's going to be difficult to enter into my partner's legs. So we start playing primarily with upper body grips and getting her off balance. And once we can get her off balance, now she steps a leg up, whatever the case is, and now we can start to access our partner's legs again and go back into attacks. Okay? So the 4 main body positions we're going to be dealing with today is a partner standing, square stance, a standing opponent, staggered stance, an opponent on 2 knees, and an opponent with 1 knee down. Okay, so for those of you who know, and have watched my previous instructionals, I'm a big, I like to emphasize what our goals are from certain positions. Now, we have a set of general goals when we're in a certain position where we have goals from guard passing, goals from open guard, goals from the back. We have a group of general ideas that we're trying to accomplish, and then we have a set of specific goals from specific positions, okay? What I want is to give you guys a clear vision of where you're trying to go. Okay, what I don't want you to, I don't want you to be in a situation where you're in an open guard and you just have no idea what's going on. I want you to be in an open guard, and even if the person you're training with, or competing against, is better than you and they beat you, I want you to start to understand why they beat you. Okay, closed guard open guard is not easy to teach. There's a lot of reaction your partner can give you. There's a lot of movement, and it's your partner can give you many different reactions. But I want you to have a clear set of goals on what you're trying to accomplish, no matter what position you're in. Okay. Some of the goals we're trying to accomplish, if my partner's standing up over me, is the dilemma between exposing the center line and exposing the back. Okay. Ground grappling, wrestling, and striking all have this simple dilemma where I can expose my partner's center line, I can go into attacks. If I can expose my partner's back, I can go into attacks. Okay? If we're both standing like so, my partner has hands up. Okay? If I can expose my partner's center line, right now she's a staggered stance, like so. Okay? So if I was to punch my partner, my hands would run into her hands. But if I can use my lead hand to create an angle where now my rear hand exposes my partner's center line, I can split my partner's hands, and then from here, we can go into attacks. Okay? Same thing as if I get around and expose my partner's back. Now, there's back exposure, where I can go around my partner's hands, where we can either go inside the elbows by exposing the center line and hitting our partner, or we can go outside the center line, outside the elbows, we can go outside the elbows, exposing our partner's back, and then we can throw punches at our partner. Same thing with wrestling. Okay? If my partner right now has a staggered stance, if I go to shoot at my partner, I don't expose the center line, it's very hard to get into any attacks with my partner. But if I use a simple elbow pass, where I pass my partner's elbow by, now I create back exposure. Now if she stays here, I can easily move to my partner's back. If she goes to square to me and she goes to overreact, now we have center line exposure. Now that I have center line exposure, it's incredibly easy now to come through and shoot in on my partner's legs. When we're on the ground, I want the same thing. I want to expose my partner's center line. So I can expose my partner's center line, and now we can go in, and we can easily off balance our partner. We can easily slide in and attack our partner's legs. If I expose my partner's back, if she goes to step across my guard, now we come through, we can expose our partner's back. So we're looking to play the dilemma between exposing our partner's back and exposing our partner's center line. If we can do either one of those, we have an incredibly easy time going into attacks. Another thing we want is constant kazushi, the constant off-balancing of my partner so that we keep we stay in an offensive cycle, okay? If you start to think about jiu-jitsu in terms of cycles, offensive cycles and defensive cycles, everything becomes much more clear. What I want is to stay in an offensive cycle for as long as possible. What I don't want is to be in a defensive cycle constantly where my partner passes my guard, I go to recover, I get my legs back inside, then she jumps to the other side, I go to recover, then she just constantly passes my guard going into attacks, and I'm stuck in a defensive cycle this entire time. The longer I can stay in an offensive cycle, the easier this is going to be. Okay, so if my partner's standing in front of me, okay, if I'm just sitting here, we're in a neutral position. If she goes to jump past my leg, now she's in an offensive cycle. I go to push back, she jumps back to the side, now I'm in a defensive cycle. Okay? But if I can constantly harass my partner's feet and go in and always get Off balance is where I'm constantly in an offensive cycle. It makes it very hard for my partner to even come in and engage my guard. Okay, that's what we want, right? If we can get constant kazushi and off balancing and stay in an offensive cycle, this is guaranteed to eventually get limb extension. Limb extension is always king because what we need for submissions is an isolated limb. What we're trying to do is control an opponent and lead to submission. The only way you can submit someone is to isolate a limb from a body. If I'm in an armbar, I have an isolated limb. If I'm in a kimura, I have an isolated limb. If I'm in any form of leg attack with an ashigarami, I have an isolated limb. If I'm in a rear naked, I have the head isolated. Anytime that we can cause constant kazushi, my partner's on 2 knees, and we can get limb extension, we can immediately start to go into attacks. The hardest person to submit is a person like this. You can't do anything. But if I can immediately come through and get constant kazushi, now I have limb extension. Now we can start to go in, attack my partner's legs. We can start to come through and come underneath, start to attack my partner's arms. Anytime that we can get our partner basing out, we can easily go into attacks. If my partner's on 2 knees, for example, she has 2 choices. If I get to hit a Sumgeshi, she can either 1, keep everything inside, which won't lead to limb entanglements, which won't lead to submissions, but then she has no base. She falls over. The only way that my partner can go not fall over is start basing out with limbs. And now from here, this makes it easy for me to go into all of my attacks. Okay? So what we're doing is we're playing a simple dilemma between the back and the center line. If we can expose our partner's center line, we can go into attacks. Now, whether you're standing or on the floor and what position you're in depends on what you'll do to expose the center line and what you'll do after you expose the center line. Okay, same thing with exposing the back. We'll have different ways to expose the back and different follow-ups after we do expose the back. We have an ability to constantly off-balance our partner with kazushis between a combination of sumigeshis, elevations, snap downs, ashiwaza techniques with the feet, with harassing our partner's feet, teiwaza techniques with the hands, and so forth. And if we can get constant kazushi, this will always lead to limb extension. And with limb extension always comes submissions and sweeps. Okay? And then finally, what I always talk about is bridging the gap between upper body and lower body attacks. Okay? The second my partner denies me the lower body and I can't get to the legs, I always go to the upper body. The second my partner denies me the upper body, she has to leave the lower body behind. And as that happens, we go right to the lower body, and we go right back into attacks on our partner's lower body. Okay? So if we have a constant thought process of what goals we're trying to achieve and how we can get there, it's going to make our life much easier. Okay? Even if you're losing situations, my goal for you guys is to be able to go back after your training, you're on a car ride home, whatever the case is, and think to yourself, why did I lose that battle? Okay? Let's say I'm in a half guard, for example, a completely different situation. Let's say I get my guard passed. Okay, my partner shucks past my top leg. She flattens me up. Back. She shucks past my top leg, gets cross face, gets underhook, flattens me out. She puts a butterfly hook in, and she gets past my guard. Okay? Most people will say to themselves, oh, I got my guard passed. Okay, no problem. Yeah, you get your guard passed. But you should be able to go home in your car and say, why did that happen to me? Okay? And this is what I'm trying to get you guys into the mindset of doing. Okay? If my partner passes my half guard, why did she pass? Number one, she got past my top leg in this situation. Why did she get chest to chest? Because I didn't dominate the upper body inside position. I didn't have a cross shoulder post. I didn't post my partner's shoulder. I didn't control my partner's shoulder line through the post of my hand and with my elbow. So she got past my top leg. That's no good. I lost the first battle. Then I didn't dominate the space between our two chests. I lost the second battle. Now she brings her knee to the inside of my armpit. Now I lost the inside elbow position relative to her foot. Now she pommels a butterfly hook in. Now I lost the battle of the inside position of the lower body. So I'm losing all these battles. And now from here she brings her knee free, and now I get my guard pass. Okay? So even if you do lose exchanges, I want you to know why you're losing the exchanges or why you're winning the exchanges. So if you are winning the exchanges, you can keep winning the exchanges. And if you're losing the exchanges, you can go back and you can fix it for the next day, the next training session, or what have you. And this is the way that you truly improve at a rate that you're happy with. The worst thing is to just go in, train hard, and then not know what's going on, not know why things are working or not working. Okay, so if we're in a position where my partner's standing up and above me, and I'm here in a seated guard, if my partner shoots past my legs, okay, this is no good. But at least I know why I lost. Okay, the only way that my partner can shoot past my legs is to have a staggered stance. Okay, so I should know that if she's in a staggered stance and I stay with a square stance, she can easily come through and shoot past my legs. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, how can I go back and fix that next time? My partner from this position is in a staggered stance, so I have to move to a staggered stance. Now when she goes to shoot past my guard, I can easily move and I can make adjustments. Okay, so that as we progress in our journey, we can go back and we can fix things that we failed at before, knowing what our goals are and how we can achieve those goals. So now we're going to look at distance management. Okay, one of the biggest questions I get when I'm playing a seated guard is, how do I stop someone from just athletically jumping past my legs? Okay, stepping past my hip line and either creating back exposure or getting to the jeopardy point where my partner goes to shoot past my legs, I fall down to my back, and now my partner's at a jeopardy point, the point at which my partner now is in real danger of passing my guard. If I don't react, I'm going to get my guard passed. Where she steps past my hip line and then possibly even up past my shoulder line, and that's no good. Okay? Let's take a look at something. When I'm in front of my partner, if my partner's in a square stance, okay, first of all, I'm just going to start by saying I don't recommend this stance. I don't know why all of my opponents stand like this. It's just because they're idiots. But this is not the way to stand against someone good. Your center line is exposed. So for the ability for me to enter into your legs and constantly off balance you is extremely easy. The idea behind it is that if you stand with both of your legs back, it's hard for me to get to your legs, because if you stand with one leg forward, now it can create a connection to you. Okay? But if you stand like this, your center line's exposed. So now I can easily hop in and go into all of my attacks, whether it be here or here. Okay? If my partner's in a square stance, it allows me to easily off balance them. Okay? And it takes away their ability to move quickly and angles past my hip line. Okay? If my partner tries to pass my guard, go ahead, she has to split her legs. Okay? She physically can't get past my legs if her heels stay in the same axis. So she has to either take a cross step and split the legs, okay? Or she has to step one leg forward in between my legs and split the legs. Okay? So if my partner is square, she's not very mobile. This allows me to stay square. So I can play from a square seated guard if my partner's square in her stance and standing in front of me. But if my partner switches to a staggered stance, where she has a lead leg and a trail leg, now this becomes dangerous. Because now, if I'm in a seated guard, she can move quickly side to side. So she can post on my knees, for example, post one inside, one outside, and she can take a cross step and shoot past my legs, and now I'm really in danger of getting past. So if my partner switches to a staggered stance, I also have to switch to a staggered stance. Okay? Let's take a look at what we're going to look at from here. When my partner switches to a staggered stance, let's first talk about there are three distances that we can be in. Okay? The first distance is a distance where my partner's so far away from me where she has to take multiple steps towards me, where I can read her movement and I can react accordingly. Where from here, as she goes to come in, I can scoot towards her, I can meet her in the middle, and then go into my attacks. Okay? The second is a position where my partner's so close where I form a strong connection to my partner, and now I can follow her movement. Okay, if she tries to shoot past my legs now, She can't. I'm connected to her. And the third is this kind of gray area here, where I'm not close enough to make any real grips with my partner, but she's one step away from shooting past my legs. Okay? Now, if I'm in this gray area and I have a staggered stance, it's not that big of a deal. But you absolutely cannot accept being in a square stance against a partner with a staggered stance and being in a position where you can't really grip your partner, but you're close enough where she can grip you with a blink of an eye and shoot past your leg. This is absolutely unacceptable. Okay? So if my partner switches to a staggered stance and has a right lead forward, I'm always going to have my right hip on the floor with my right leg to monitor my partner's lead leg. So it's right versus right. She has a right leg forward, and I have a right leg forward. So now if she goes to step towards me, I can always meet my partner's leg in the middle. What this does is it only allows my partner to pass to one side. Okay? So we have, just like we were talking about with passing in the closed guard instructional, I have a path of known reactions where I know exactly where my partner has to go. Let's take a look at why this is. If my partner takes a step across in this direction with her right foot, she exposes her own center line. And now it can easily come through and enter into my partner's legs. If she goes to take a step across in this direction, take a step across in this direction, she exposes the center line again. I can come in, I can go double Koichi. So she can't step in this direction because she exposes her own center line. If she exposes the center line, that's where all my attacks come from. So she has no choice but to pass in this direction. So the only thing she can do is either step a leg to the middle, okay, which is difficult because I can monitor her foot with my leg. So when she has to step towards me, I can block her foot and then move into a position where I'm connected, and now I can go into my attacks. Or she can take a cross step past my hip line in this direction. And as I know it's going to happen, it's very easy now as she goes to step to create back exposure. So if my partner's in a staggered stance, I have to stay in a staggered stance as well. You cannot accept your partner being in a staggered stance while you're in a square stance. Unacceptable. Okay, so knowing this, if you see your partner switch from a square stance to a staggered stance, we come through into a staggered stance as well. Now, depending on what leg your partner has forward will depend on what stance I have. Your partner's stance your stance will be contingent upon your partner's stance. If my partner switches her legs, left leg and right leg, now I have to switch hips from my right hip to my left hip. Okay? If she goes left leg forward and I stay on my right hip, now my partner can easily take a cross step and easily outflank me and create tons of back exposure and passing opportunities. Okay? So if she switches left leg forward, the onus is on me now to switch left hip and left leg forward. So now if she steps across in this direction, she exposes the center line, and we can go into attacks. If she steps in this direction, we can easily create back exposure. Okay? So as a general rule, if my partner's in a square stance in front of me, it's acceptable for me to be in a square stance here, where now I can play, I can start the grip fight, we can go and attack our partner's feet and expose the center line. If my partner switches to a staggered stance, which is smart for her, because now we have no center line exposure and we have no back exposure. If she's in a square stance, we have center line exposure but no back exposure. But we only need one. If she goes into a square or staggered stance, just like in wrestling and striking, now there's no back exposure and there's no center line exposure. So the job now for us is to create center line or back exposure so we can go into attacks. If she switches to a staggered stance, we switch to a staggered stance. And we play in preferably a distance here where she goes to walk towards me and I can always adjust and go into my attacks, or a distance where I'm close enough to be able to touch her, either here, here, or here. If my opponent switches legs and she goes into a left leg lead, I can't stay on my right hip because now she can easily outflank me and I'm going to get my back taken or get my guard passed. So I have to switch accordingly. Okay? Now, this is harder than it looks. You're in a stressful situation. You have someone who's very athletic on top of you. You're in a competition and your partner's switching their feet, dancing around. And you can kind of, you see like people like capoeira where they're like this and feinting with the lead leg. Okay, just as we talked about in our passing instructional, you should always be feinting with the lead leg. Okay, so if she's right leg forward, if she's feinting with the lead leg, it's, I have to start harassing her feet and constantly get her off balance. She switches leads, I switch leads. She goes back to square, I can play here, staggered, or I can move back to square as well. Okay, but you always have to be the one that's winning the battle for distance and winning the battle for grip fighting, which we'll talk about later. Okay, and that's the key to be able to put constant pressure on your partner from a bottom position. Okay, so now that we've established that, contrary to popular belief, I don't just drag my ass across the floor from milking guard. There's actually a way of doing things that's very specific. Let's talk about now the importance of having concave shoulders. Okay, the act of taking my shoulders and rolling them forward like so. Okay. Whenever I am in a seated guard and I'm trying to elevate a kneeling opponent, for example, it's incredibly important. I mean, based from all bottom positions, it's very important to have concave shoulders. But we'll talk about that later. But if I'm trying to elevate an opponent in front of me, and I'm on two knees like so, if I have my shoulders on the same axis and my two shoulders are square, if I try to elevate my partner and my back falls flat, there's no way I can ever pull my partner up. Okay, you're gonna be using so much of you're engaging so much of your core that's gonna be almost impossible to pull a bigger opponent on top of you. What you want is to form a banana shape with your spine, okay? Like a rocking chair. A rocking chair, even if you're a 90-year-old woman, it's very easy to distribute weight back and forth, okay, because of the curvature of the bottom of the chair. So we want our spine to look like a banana or a rocking chair, okay, so that it's very easy to get weight moving forwards and backwards. If I lay flat on my back and I try to elevate someone from here, it's going to be incredibly difficult. But the second I can form that banana shape with my spine, now the smallest amount of effort will get me moving back and forth, like so. Okay, because my shoulders move from a square position on the same axis into this concave position, where now from here, I no longer have shoulders that are square, and now I can move from side to side very easily, whereas before, you're engaging your core muscles to move side to side, and you're engaging your core muscles to move forwards and backwards. The second my shoulders come off the mat and I'm in a concave position, the ability to move side to side and back and forth becomes very easily. Okay? I can rock back and forth for hours like this without ever getting tired. But if I'm trying to do crunches and engage my core, it's very, very difficult. So the importance of having concave shoulders comes from every position. It comes from elevating someone from bottom position, comes from moving into an ashigurami type situations, and is especially important when escaping pins. For those of you guys who have John's pin escapes, I know, I haven't watched it, but I know for a fact he talks about this. This is one of the main things he talks about. Let's say we're trying to move out from a bottom pin. Okay. Similar to how strikers hide their jaws, we too as grapplers have to hide our jaws. Okay. If my shoulders are square in the floor, or square in the mat, flat on the floor, and I present my jawline to my partner's shoulder and cross face, no amount of elevation with my left foot is going to take my partner up and over my left shoulder. I'll always get caught underneath my partner's cross face. If I try to elevate with my left leg over my left shoulder and my shoulders are square on the floor and I present my jaw to my partner, you're never going to elevate anybody. Okay? But the second my shoulders come into a concave position and I hide my jaw from my partner's cross face, now when she goes to hold on as tight as she can, I can easily elevate my partner out and away. Okay? When I go to escape a mounted position, we use our favorite kipping escape. Okay, my partner's down, hands on the floor. If my shoulders are flat on the floor, you'll never be able to do it. But the second we move into a concave position and my shoulders come up off the ground, we can easily go into escape. If I'm looking to escape side control, I hide my jaw from my partner. Now from here, if my shoulders are flat on the floor, I can never escape. From this position, the second my shoulders come into a concave position, I start to hide my jaw from my partner. We can easily invert the knee, we can bring everything back inside, and now we can escape. So having this idea of using concave shoulders from a bottom position especially, talking about pin escapes and open guard, is very, very important, okay? If I'm trying to elevate someone, like so, I need to have concave shoulders. You'll notice I'm not engaging my core muscles at all. I can elevate her forwards and backwards with hurt ribs, I'll add. Relatively easy. I don't do any work from this position. It's so easy. I'll never get exhausted taking her forwards and backwards because I can use my body as the same effect as a rocking chair, where there's very minimal effort to take my partner forwards and backwards. And I can do this talking to you without a change in my voice as I elevate my partner for minutes on end. So too, with a standing opponent. If I want to switch ashiguramis from leg to leg, if my shoulders are flat on the floor and I try to fire my hips up like this, it's going to be very difficult to lock a tight ashigurami. But we can easily rock back and forth, switching from side to side, and we're used concave shoulders, like so. It makes it very easy to be able to move from position to position. If I look to go into any kind of inversion, for example, where I knock my partner down, I look to invert, I need to have concave shoulders. This is such a big portion of what you're doing from bottom position. If you can have concave shoulders, it's very hard to pin you, and it makes it very easy for you to move along the mat. The surface area of your body that touches the floor becomes much less. Whereas now, there's a lot of friction between myself and the floor. So if you're looking to invert underneath your partner, concave shoulders. If you're looking to escape bottom pins, concave shoulders. If you're looking to elevate someone, concave shoulders, okay? The second you start thinking about this position, everything becomes much easier. In most other areas of life, even combat sports, wrestling, good posture is typically this, where I have a very straight back. In our sport, good posture is typically this, okay? Where everything's in this position, where we have typically bad posture. This is our good posture. Second, we can start thinking about this idea of having concave shoulders, like so, where we hide our jaw and look to minimize the surface area and connection between our back and the floor. Everything will become much easier. All right, so now we're going to look at some drills you guys could be doing. This is more for beginner to mid-level grapplers. Something that John used to have us do very often. I do this all the way up until brown belt, black belt, just to get my mind in the habit of putting my ashiguramis in tight and being able to transition from leg to leg. Okay, so when my partner stands up and above me in a square stance and steps over me like so, I'm going to throw an ashigurami up into place. Now, as we talked about previously, my ashiguramis should always off-balance my partner when I put them in, okay? If I put an arimi ashigurami into place and doesn't off-balance my partner, this is no good, okay? What I want is the second I throw my legs into place, my partner should immediately have to base out. If you can see any daylight between your hips and leg and your partner's leg, yet it's a clear sign that it's not a tight ashigurami. So I want to throw my hips up. I want to use my left foot on my partner's hip to pull myself up with concave shoulders and mold my body to my partner's body. So as I lock in place, now there's no daylight between my hips, my leg, and my partner's leg. And now from here, we can go into an ashigurami. We're going to do a drill where I take my legs up, and now my legs come down. My legs come up. My legs come down, my legs come up, my legs come down. The only way that you'll be able to achieve an effortless side-to-side switch on your partner's legs is if you have concave shoulder and you mimic a rocking chair of the shape of your spine. If you try to engage your core and throw your legs up, and you have your shoulders flat on the floor, it's going to be incredibly hard to get your legs up with a good connection. You're going to get exhausted, and your ashigarami is going to be weak. But if you have concave shoulders, you can rock back and forth with very little to no effort. This gets you in the idea of having concave shoulders where I can effortlessly switch from leg to leg for minutes at a time and never get tired. And have a good connection every single time. Okay? That's a more basic one. Now, a more advanced one is entered into my partner's legs into a cross ashigarami from this position. This is realistic in a sense, where, let's say, I'm in an open guard, my partner shoots past my legs. From here, we come through, and before she goes to drop down, I throw myself up and we get into an ashigarami like so. Okay, now, I'm aware that a lot of you out there buying this instructional aren't going to do crazy inversions and and do tornado guard and barren bowls and all that stuff. So as I'm aware of that, it would still be a disservice to not teach those things for those of you who do want to do inversions. Okay, so the close guard and the guard passing were essentially things that pretty much anyone could do. I mean, you should be able to do this. In the sport, you should be able to at least get your feet to the ground over your head, preferably your knees if possible. Okay, but I realize that there are some of you that struggle to do that. But I'm still going to include some things that may be difficult for some people and may not be the game that some people are looking to have. But there are plenty of people that are going to love this stuff. So I'll include some stuff for everyone. Most of the stuff I do is typical sumigeshis and harassing the feet. And then I will throw some inversion stuff in there for those of you who like to play that game. Okay, this is one of those inversion techniques. My partner's going to stand above me like so. From this position, I'm going to grab two of my partner's legs. And I'm going to throw my legs up into place. Now, the way that I do this drill properly, I'm going to show you first, and then we'll do it at speed. Concave shoulders, banana-shaped spine. I throw my right leg up, and I connect my heel to my partner's cross buttocks. So right now, my right leg connects to my partner's left buttocks. Here. Now I use the combination of the concave shoulders with my hips coming up and a back heel, a pulling of my right heel to my butt to throw my hips up like so, and then create an angle where my left knee connects to the back of my partner's knee. Here. What I don't want is to figure four my legs. It feels like a strong connection, but the second your partner pushes on your knee, her knee immediately slips out beyond your knee line. So the concave shoulders brings your hips up, foot inserts. From here, I take my left knee behind my partner's left knee. I create an angle where my knee slips to the outside of my partner's legs. I create a strong connection. Now I scissor my two legs. When my partner goes to push my knees down now, that's impossible. Now from here, we take our left foot, our bottom foot in this position, we connect it to our shoelaces to our partner's hip. This will push us back to the starting position. Then I throw my left leg to a cross buttocks and my partner's right leg. And now from here, my hips come up. As my hips come up, my right knee comes down behind my partner's right knee, and we scissor our legs. When my partner goes to push my knee down now, it's impossible. I take my bottom leg, shoelaces to thigh, and I push myself back. Once you can achieve this transition easily, then we're going to switch. So first, we go nice and slow. Right leg comes up to across buttocks. The combination of my concave shoulders and the ability for me to rock will bring my hips up close to my partner's leg. Coupled with that is a back heel behind my partner's buttocks, right where the buttocks meets the hamstring. So as my hips rise, just before my hips connect to my partner's thigh, I create an angle where now just with the point of my shoulders are on the floor. The only way that I can get my back off the ground is by having concave shoulders. And now from here I can create an angle
where my left knee chops down behind my partner's leg. We put a wedge on both the front and the back of my partner's leg. So when she just push my legs down, it's incredibly difficult. My legs are not crossed here. Now we go shoelaces to the front of the thigh. And we come back out. We rock back up. We create an angle. We rock back up. We create an angle. We rock back up. We go back and forth. And the only way that you can do this without putting stress on yourself and getting extremely exhausted is by having concave shoulders. And this will not only condition you to be able to invert easily, to get your body in the habit of moving into these leg positions, having concave shoulders, that it will also lead you right into the best attacking position you can be in when attacking your partner's legs. We're going to go right to cross ashigarami and go into all of our inverted heel hooks. Okay, so there's 2 drills that you can do. One's a little bit easier, one's a little bit harder. To get you in the condition to immediately enter into your partner's legs when she does get past your guard with cross ashigarami attacks, and to just switch legs with arimi ashigarami back and forth. And you need to have concave shoulders, otherwise you'll be exhausted in the first 10 seconds. Okay, so give those a shot, and that'll get you conditioned to always have bad posture. Okay, our good posture where our shoulders roll forward and we always hide our jaw from partner's cross faces. Okay, let's look at the most basic ashigarami entrance that you could ever really wish to enter into. If you guys watched some of our old leg locking footage back when I was a blue and purple belt and Gary and Eddie were coming up on the local scene and submitting everyone, they would just enter into ashigarami. People would just walk right into them square and they would just enter into ashigaramis right away and finish them. Let's look at a general rule for entering into an ashigarami on basic ashigarami onto versus a standing opponent who has a square stance. Okay, so my partner's standing up over me. The main reason why people stand with square stances, okay, now at the highest level, you're never going to really enter into any ashigaramis like this, but at the lower levels, this is very common. The main reason why people stand with a square stance is so they can keep both of their feet back and away from you. Okay, so the feet will be back and away, the head will be forward, and the hands will be in like so. Okay, so I can't really reach my partner's feet with both of my legs unless I move towards her to go into attacks. If my partner makes a naive mistake of walking towards me and having her feet on the same axis as my 2 feet, where now my feet can easily access hers, we're just going to take our 2 feet together and our 2 knees together. We're going to reach forward and we're going to grab both of our partner's legs like so. So from here, I can take my heels and pull my butt to my heels. As I do this, you have to make sure that once your center of gravity is underneath your partner's center of gravity, essentially once your hips are underneath your partner's hips, that one of your knees stays into your chest. If I pull myself underneath my partner like this, and my 2 knees are away from my chest, she'll easily drop down and she'll enter into mount. You pull yourself into mount, okay? And if anyone actually saw, when I was a purple belt, I competed against Richie Martinez, Boogeyman from 10th Planet, and ADCC trials in 2014. And my first move of the match was to try to enter into an ashigarami like this, and I just pulled myself straight into mount like an idiot, and then it was like mounted in the first 10 seconds of the match. But nonetheless, this is a very easy entrance on a naive opponent who just walks straight into me. Okay, so she comes forward. I'm playing in a square stance versus a square opponent. She walks towards me, and her feet get too close. Whenever I see this, I take my 2 hands and I grab the outside of my partner's 2 knees. Okay, now I make sure I don't grab like this. She can punch an underhook. She can do all kinds of things. Make sure when I grab, everything's in close. So if she tries to punch an underhook in, it's not an easy thing. Okay, she can eventually dig an underhook in if I just sit here, but that's not the plan. I'm just gonna grab and go. We come through, we grab our partner, outside of our partner's 2 legs. And we take our 2 heels together and our 2 knees together. I pull my heel into my butt, or I pull my heels into my butt, and this drags my butt along the mat, like so. The second my hips get underneath my partner's, you choose. You're in a symmetrical position, so you can keep either leg to your chest, or you can extend whichever leg you want. You can enter into this leg or this leg, doesn't make a difference. From this position, as I fall down to my back with concave shoulders, one knee stays into my chest, and one knee shoots away from my chest to start going into entrances into Ashigarami. From this position, I fire my legs up into place, and we immediately get that initial Kazushi to off bounce my partner as soon as we go in. And now from here, we can go into all the attacks from our partner. We're going to go into attacks from Ashigarami and X-Guard later in the instructional. But right now, I just want to get you guys into entrances. Also, I want to say this. There's 2 cameras, and I keep looking directly at the wrong camera. So if at any point you guys make fun of me for looking at the wrong camera, I'm sorry. I know I'm looking at the wrong camera, but I'm going to try to adjust that as we go. Okay? My partner has 2 feet. She's in a squared stance. I have my 2 knees open. I'm in a squared stance as well. My partner makes the mistake of getting too close to me, where now my hands can access my partner's legs, and my 2 feet are on the same axis as my partner's feet. If you were to draw a line that goes straight out along the line of my partner's heels, my 2 feet are lined with that space. Now we come through, we grab our partner's legs like so. As we go to fire ourselves in, we make sure that when our hips get underneath our partner's hips, at least one of our knees stays towards my partner's, or stays towards my chest. Here. And now as we fire our legs up, we enter into an Ashigarami with an immediate off-balancing effect, and we're ready to go in and start attacking our partner's legs. Okay, so that's pretty much the start of our instructional, the most basic Ashigarami entrance that you can go into. Alright, so now what we're basically going to start pretty basic, and we're going to get more advanced as we go. As you guys will see through the next techniques, what I'm going to start to do first is I'm going to start by dealing with an opponent with a squared stance. So we're going to go over all the situations from versus a square stance opponent standing up over me on 2 feet. And then we're going to go into what we're going to do against an opponent with a staggered stance. And then from there, we're going to go into how we deal with opponent on 2 knees and then an opponent on 1 knee. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is primarily against an opponent with a square stance. Now, as many of you know, I talk very frequently about how amateur the sport is and how naive a lot of the people I compete against are. Jiu-Jitsu is a very young sport, and I truly believe that as a whole we're pretty amateur. Let's take a look at why this is. If my opponent's standing in front of me with a square stance, okay, she has good posture. She's here. If I if I just suddenly place my foot, my shoelaces on the inside of my partner's leg, a smart opponent will always just take her foot and pommel inside of my foot, like this, okay? So what this should look like, the second someone engages in into my foot like this, if they have no grips with their hands, the second she goes to lift my leg, I just pommel inside, okay? What a lot of people do is they just lift their foot and they try to move it out and away in this direction. So they lift it and they try to either back it away, where I can't pull my foot straight back because her shoelaces are wedged behind my Achilles, and I can't just move it out in this direction because you can just follow me and off balance it. So the proper defense to this is just to simply pommel on top of your partner's shin to get inside foot position, just as we talked about in the passing instructionals, where I can put an inside foot straight hamstring or an inside foot cross hamstring and start to pass. The second my partner puts a foot inside my foot and she goes to off balance me, I just pommel to the inside. It's relatively basic. Okay, so we're playing in here. She goes, I have a square stance. As she goes to push my foot out, you just pommel inside, and now we're ready to pass. It seems basic, okay, but in ADCC, with both Pedro Mourinho and Tim Spriggs, and in various other matches, those are just most recent ones, in various other matches, people don't pommel their feet. They just pick their feet up and allow me to off balance them, okay? It's just mind-boggling how this happens. So while this is relatively basic, you see it happen a lot, even at the highest levels. It shouldn't work, but it does. So I'm going to show it to you guys. All right. And if you recall the Pedro Mourinho match or the Tim Sprigg match, they were actually off upper body grips. Tim Sprigg actually posted on my hand, and I pulled him in, and I went in here with a single Koichi, and then switching to grabbing with the hands. But it just palm with the feet. It's not that hard. Okay. So we're going to be looking at an opponent with a square stance. And we're going to come through. We're going to have a square stance as well, and we're just going to take our foot, and we're going to come right in here like so. Okay? Now, as my partner goes to pick the leg up and pull back and away, we're just going to feed to our hands. What we want is to establish a sticky grip, where I put a wedge on both sides of my partner's leg, where I have one foot on the inside and a hand on the outside. Once I can establish a sticky grip and my partner goes to pull away from me, it's a relatively hard thing to do. Okay? From this position, we can put ourselves in two spots. Number one, we grab as she goes to raise the leg. We just pull ourselves in. We use our right foot to pull our hips underneath our partners. We pull our partner's foot to the outside of our hip and go right into an ashigarami. Okay? Another situation that will occur is I'll feed my partner's leg to my hand. So as she goes to pick the foot up to disengage, we come here. Now she goes to pull away from me. We grab at the top of my partner's Achilles, and our palm grabs the inside of our partner's foot like so. This is an incredibly strong 2-on-1 grip. Okay, this is the same grip I used to pull Cyborg back into my Ashigarami 2017 ADCC. So when my partner goes to pull away from me, I just take 2 feet on the floor, and I lay back and I pull my partner into an Ashigarami, and now we're ready to go into attacks right from here. Okay, so you have one of two reactions. Your partner either stays facing you or turns away from you. And this is all off a very subtle single Koichi by just placing a foot to the inside. So we're playing here. Let's say I can't get grips for whatever reason. We come through and we take our foot inside. And we start harassing our partner's feet. Now, if she's smart, she'll just pommel her foot to the inside, and now she's inside foot position. But if she's an idiot, like most people, she'll just raise her foot up straight up, and I can off-balance her. Or she'll try to pull it straight back, and I can always pull it to my hand. Okay? If my partner makes a decision to stay facing me as I feed it into my own hand, then I just use my right foot to pull myself in. Again, as I get my hips underneath my partner's hips, my right knee has to come into my chest. And immediately go right into an ashigarami. If my partner tries to pull herself away, we go from hand, single hand and a foot, and we replace the inside wedge, the foot in this case, with our right hand. So as she has to pull away from me, come through. Now we place 2 feet on the floor. When she goes to run away, there's no way she's getting out of here. Now we just put 2 feet on the floor, I lay back, I pull my partner into an ashigarami, and now we're ready to go and do all of our attacks. Okay, so what it'll look like is we come through, we're playing, she has a square stance, she goes to raise the leg to pommel, and I feed. Now from here, we either slide our way in, okay? If our partner lands in a position where I feel like as I go to slide in, she's gonna backstep and get 2 of her feet to the same side of my body. This is no good for my ashigarami. As we slide, we can take our foot behind our partner's hamstring and physically bump our partner forward first. Okay? So we come through, we initially catch. As she goes to raise her foot, we feed to our hand, and now we either use our right foot to pull us in and feed to an ashigarami. If you feel like your partner is starting to align her feet and walk her center line further away from you, now, in this case, as we feed to our hands, come back. As we feed to our hand, now as she starts hopping in this direction, I use my left foot to pull me in, and I use my right foot to hit an initial kazushi to get my ashigarami / X guard into place. And if I feel we're playing in here, she goes to pommel her foot, she goes to run away from me, and we pull her back into an ashigarami, and now we're ready to go into all of our attacks from there. Okay, so two variations and a third sub-variation, I guess we would call it, depending on my partner's foot position. Okay, so the two main ones are, we're playing here. I just suddenly place my foot inside. The second I see her foot come up, I feed to my hand. Now from this position, because her stance is square, I pull myself in and we're in an Ashigurami. This time, she goes to pommel her leg. Now, she starts stepping in this direction with her leg, starts back stepping. I put my left leg in the floor, right leg catches far hamstring, and my left leg pulls me in as my right leg sends my partner out in this direction. We throw our Ashigurami up into place. Okay? Now, we're playing it here. We have no grips. We just come inside. As she goes to lift her leg to pommel, I feed to my hand. She goes to pull away from me hard. And we pull our partner back into an Ashigurami. And now we're ready to go into all of our attacks. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at a double Koichi with no grips against a more talented opponent, okay? These last couple of ones, especially the first one, were for more naive opponents. I know that the one I just showed you has worked on, multiple people at ADCC, but it shouldn't work, okay? Once the sport progresses to where it should be, and there's not a bunch of kindergartners practicing at ADCC, there will be a lot more intricate leg pommeling and hand pommeling, things like that. Now we're going to look at a double Koichi with someone who's not allowing me to get any grips on them. So someone who's really just stalling. When you have someone who's in a square stance, it's mainly just because they want to stall. You can't pass my guard with a square stance. You can only pass with a staggered stance. Okay, so dealing with someone who plays a cagey game, head down, hands forward, feet backing away from you, that's someone who wants to stall. Okay. We have to find out, how we're going to deal with this. We'll first look at not being able to make any grips on our opponent, and then we'll move into what we can do when we are able to make grips and how we can make grips on an opponent who doesn't want me to make grips on them. Okay, so let's just start off with the mechanics of a double Koichi. I have an opponent standing over me. I'm in a square stance. Okay, now you have a choice. If your opponent is in a squared stance, you have a choice of being in a square stance yourself or being in a staggered stance yourself. Okay. If your opponent is in a squared stance or in a staggered stance, like we talked about, now I have to move to a staggered stance. Okay, so we only have really one option. If my partner's in a staggered stance, that's also to be in a staggered stance. But if my partner's in a square stance, I can also be in a square stance or a staggered stance. Both are very good. All right. Well, we're going to start in square stance from here. From this position, we're going to look to hit a double Koichi. When I move into double Koichi, it's important that I look at some key mechanics on how to actually finish this. I'm going to post the hand on the floor. So I'm going to go into a slightly staggered stance, but I'm not going to change the position of my legs right now. I'm just going to put my right hand on the floor. From this position, I'm going to jump towards my partner. What I need is forward momentum to start knocking my partner back and away from me. So I'm going to take my left leg on the floor, my right hand on the floor, and I'm just going to propel myself towards my partner so I can get close enough to get my shoelaces behind my partner's two Achilles tendons. Here. Okay? Now, I have one support leg and one action leg. The idea is not to just put two blockers behind your partner's legs and push her down. Okay? The idea is to put two blockers behind her legs and use one leg to block her leg and one leg to actively off-balance your partner. The way that we do this is by having one support leg and one action leg, which actually pulls my partner's leg towards me. Okay, essentially what we're doing, it's similar to that trick you used to play in high school where someone goes behind your friend and they push the friend over behind you. Okay? We're going to get a step further than that. Instead of just pushing her over blockers, we're actually pulling a foot out like so. All right. As I go to jump and I look to put feet behind my partner's legs, whichever hip I'm on, you have to pick a hip, either the right hip or the left hip. Whichever hip I'm on, that leg is going to be my action leg. So from my left hip, my left leg is going to be my action leg, and my right leg is going to be my support leg. The support leg just blocks behind the Achilles. The action leg
pulls my partner's foot along the floor in line with the toes. So whatever direction the toes point, we pull in that direction along the line of the floor. What you don't want is for your knee to point up towards the ceiling so that when you go to pull with your leg, you slide up to the short end of the lever up your partner's calf muscle. What you want is to have your leg relatively parallel to the floor so that when you pull, it drags the foot along the line of the floor. Okay? So what this will look like is we're playing here. We can't make grips. I try to make grips on my partner. Hands are coming away. She's pushing on my head. She's backing away. I can't make grips. I'm going to post on my hand like so. Now I'm going to jump in towards my partner, and I'm going to use my free hand to post on my partner's shoulders like this. As I go to jump with no grips, we use one hand. With other grips on the hands, we can use two hands on my partner's hips. We'll move into that later. But for now, we're going to use one hand as a post on my partner's shoulder. It's very important that you don't leave your hand out here for any amount of time. Your partner can jump triangles, arm bars, and things like that. So we play this game where we're reaching, trying to get grips. Our partner's not really doing anything. And then all of a sudden, we put our hand on the floor. And now we use our feet to propel ourselves so our butt comes off the floor. And we use our feet to harass our partner's 2 feet. Because of my left hand posting on the floor, my left leg's going to be my action leg. So I hop in, and now we catch. Now, as I push my partner's shoulder, my right leg is my support leg. So it just catches behind my partner's ankle. My left leg is my action leg. So it pulls along the line of the floor. So that means I have to flare my knee open down to the ground and pull along the line of the floor in the direction my partner's toes point. As I do this, I block my partner's leg with my right leg. As I pull the leg, I push the shoulders, and we sit our partner down to the floor. So what it'll look like in real time as we're playing here, I'm trying to make grips, I can't, and then as soon as we're ready to go, we post the hand, we post the shoulder, we sit our partner down to the floor. Okay? From a different angle, we're playing. I try to make grips. We're playing here, I'm trying to make grips. I feel like I can't do it, and then as we're ready to go, we post, we sit our partner down, and they're ready to come back up into a passing position or go into leg locks, whatever we want. Okay? But we can't make a grip on our partner. I feel like I just can't access my partner's hands. I can't access the legs. I can't access the head. And now we're up and we're ready to go. Okay. So the key mechanics to double Koichi is one support leg, which blocks my partner's leg. One action leg, which actively pulls my partner's leg towards me, and one post hand to get her shoulders and momentum moving back and away from me. So this is what knocks our partner down and leads to a good double Koichi, where I pull my partner's foot towards me as I push the shoulders away from me. All right, so this time we're gonna have a partner with a squared stance, no access to the hands yet, but access to the head for a brief amount of time. Okay, so my partner's gonna be standing and essentially matching my head level. Okay, whenever I see my partner's head is relatively the same height as mine, we can always come through and use collar ties on our partner. If my partner's head is way above mine and her feet are far away from me, this is not the time to start reaching for collar ties, because now I'm getting overextended and flying jujis and triangles become a real danger. When my partner's down close to me and I can reach for my partner's head and not get overextended, this is the time now to start going in for double Koichis. Now, we can use 2 different hand positions, okay? If I pull on my partner, pull a collar tie on my partner, if she just goes to posture up and away from me without addressing my hand grips, all we have to do is use our hand, like so, to push our partner's shoulders back and away from us. But if our partner goes to peel grips off with the hands, then we use a 2-handed push on the legs to knock our partner over. Okay? So when I take a right-handed grip on my partner's head, like so, if she tries to posture up and away from me, I'm going to use my left hand on the floor. As my left hand posts on the floor, I use this to take my butt off the floor and drag myself towards my partner. So as she goes to pull me up and away, that helps me come in. Now, if I have a right-handed grip on my partner's collar, I have a right-legged support leg and a left leg action leg. So if my right hand is a collar tie,
the opposite leg is the action leg. As I push on my partner's shoulder with my forearm, my left leg drags the leg out. We knock our partner over. And because we have a collar tie, this will drag us up on top of our partner and put us in perfect positions to start going into passes or what have you from there. Okay. So the first one is we come in and we don't have access to the hands, but we have brief access to the head because she's matching my head level. As she matches my head level, we go collar tie. As she goes to posture up and away without stripping my grip, we just hop in. We pull ourselves up to top position relatively easy. Okay. So if we switch angles, we're in here. I get brief access to the head. She goes to pull up and away. I hop in. My opposite leg, my left leg in this case, is my action leg. So my right hand's collar tie, left leg's action leg. She goes to posture up. Now we're ready to come through and start going into all of our favorite passing positions from here. Now, second option is this time I have a more talented opponent who knows a collar tie is no good. So the second I go into a collar tie, she postures up and she goes to peel my hands off with her head or with her hands. As she's distracted with the collar tie and as she goes to posture up from here, because she's moving away from me again, it's going to be difficult now to keep a collar tie long enough to push off of her shoulder with my forearm. So instead, this time I hop in and I push anywhere ranging from the hips down to the knees with two hands. So as she goes to posture up and away from me, we hop in and we catch here. Where now we have, again, the opposite leg as the action leg. We push in the hips as we pull our partner's foot out and away. We use it to come up on top into top position. So we go in. We're playing here. My partner has a relatively low head and she's playing here. Okay, this is very smart if my partner doesn't want me to start coming up into takedowns. Okay, you see a lot of wrestlers will go from a seated guard and they'll just shoot in a partner's leg. If my partner's standing up straight, it's pretty easy for me to come in and go for takedowns. So what everyone does is they match head levels here, just like in the standing position. So it's hard for me to come up and shoot in the legs. So whenever I see this, we go into a collar tie, like so. Now, as my partner goes to simultaneously posture up and peel the grip off, we just hop in and we catch. So what it'll look like is we're playing here. Second I go in, she goes to peel the collar tie off. Maybe I'm playing, I go collar tie, she peels. You go collar tie, she peels. You go collar tie, she peels. And then we're in and we're ready to go. Okay? All right, so let's talk now about the importance of using two-on-one grippings and two-on-one gripping and arm drags. All right, I have to always remember if my partner denies me the lower body, we should be going right to the upper body. If my partner then denies me the upper body, then we go right back into the lower body. Okay, so what I mean by this is, like we talked about before with the Tim Spriggs match, for example. He was standing up, he posted on my head and denied me the legs. I couldn't access the legs. He put a barrier between myself and his legs. So I went and I grabbed his hands. Now, as I started to go pulling him forward, the only way that he can pull away from me is not to just posture up. If she just tries to posture up with her legs here, it's impossible. She would get pulled forward. Okay? So in order for her to posture up and negate me pulling her legs towards me, she has to step one leg forwards. Like this. Was the other leg in this case? Step one leg forward. And now from here, I went in and I accessed the leg, and he went to go step his leg up, and then I pulled him into Ashigarami. Okay? So it's very important to play the bridge between upper body and lower body attacks. I can't stress this enough. In all of my DVDs, essentially, I talk about this, and it's no different here. Right? So let's look at the two-on-one gripping, specific two-on-one gripping from these positions. If my partner is standing in front of me, first of all, we have to look at the correct way to grip with a two-on-one. All right? The beauty of a two-on-one is that a two-on-one reinforces the weakness of each individual one-on-one. The weakness of a one-on-one grip is the space between the thumb and the fingers. If she wants to free her hand has to go between the space, which is occupied, the space that's between my thumb and my fingers. If she takes her hand, she pushes it back towards my palm, she's never going to pull her hand out. So she has to go in between that space. If I grab a two-on-one like this, I don't cover the space between the thumb and my fingers. So when she goes to pull her hand out, she goes one way and the other way, and then she's gone. Right, so all she has to do is turn her hand one way, then turn her hand the opposite way, and then she's going to easily pull her hand out. So when I grab it 2-on-1, whether it's upward facing or downward facing, I make sure I grab with my initial 1-on-1, and then my second hand reinforces the weakness of the first, the initial 1-on-1. So I grab the 1-on-1, and then I cover the space between the fingers with my second palm here. So now when she goes to pull her hands out, it's fucking hard, okay? This is what makes you feel like you have strong grips or sticky grips. It doesn't come from the strength of my hands. It comes from the precision of what I'm doing, the precision of my grips. So we initially have a downward facing 2-on-1, an upward facing 2-on-1, a 2-on-1 elbow, and an arm drag, okay? When we use downward facing 2-on-1s, it's when my partner's hand is below the height of my partner's elbow. So if you draw a line that goes straight out from my partner's elbow, if my partner's arm is below that line, we generally use downward facing 2-on-1s. If my partner's arm is above that line, we generally use upward facing 2-on-1s. And at any point, we can switch to 2-on-1 elbows, regardless of where my partner's arm or hand is relative to the elbow. And we additionally have the ability to go into arm drags whenever my partner's hand is below the elbow as well. Now, let's look at general uses for these grips. My partner posts on my head, for example. Now she has a hand that's the same level, equal to the height, or higher than my partner's elbow. So we immediately come and strip this grip off, and we go 2-on-1, upward facing. Start pulling our partner in like so. If my partner takes a collar tie on me, now from here we can strip the grip off, and we can go 2-on-1 upward facing, 2-on-1 elbow. If my partner grabs my wrists, we strip the grip off. She goes to peel my grip off, now we go 2-on-1. My partner goes to grab my feet, goes to start lifting my ankles to put my back to the floor. That's a perfect time. As she goes to grab a foot, come in and go 2-on-1. She goes to lift my foot, I circle one leg out. And now she goes to lift the second foot, we pull our foot in, now we have 2-on-1. My partner goes to lift my feet up again, we come in, we go with the drag grip. As she goes to lift my feet, I can off balance, and now we're bringing a leg towards us. As she goes to pull away, we go double kuichi. Okay? The importance of grip fighting in any position is it's something that's not really ever taught, but the person who dominates the gripping exchanges will dominate the pace of the match. Okay? So it's never acceptable for you to be standing, or for a partner to be standing, and to be dominating grip fighting exchanges. You can never let someone take a collar tie for a long amount of time. Now she's close to pulling your head in, shooting past your legs, and all kinds of things. You can't accept your partner grabbing your ankles for a long amounts of time. Second someone grabs my ankles, we have to be off balance with my partner. We have to be doing something to get her out of balance, look to go into attacks on my partner. And whenever the upper body pulls away from me, now the legs are always there. Okay? So we're looking at a combination of 2-on-1s with the elbow, 2-on-1 downward facing, 2-on-1 upward facing, and drag grips. All right. All right. So now let's look at some basic ashigarami entrances from various 2-on-1s and arm drags. Okay. We're just going to run you through some common grip fighting situations that may happen at high levels, in this position. My partner's standing over me. Very common. People are posting on your head to stay away from you. Okay, this isn't really intelligent. It's just stalling. She's not going to do anything to pass from this position. She's just not engaging. Whenever I see someone posting on my head, like we talked about, we always start off initially with an upward facing 2-on-1. Whenever I take 2-on-1s initially, we want a small, subtle off balancing off balancing effect. Okay, so while I'm not going to get my partner drastically out of balance, I want to have an assertive grip. So when we come up, we take two hands like so, and we form this V grip, this double V grip with our hands like so. Now, as we come up, we angle our hands slightly towards our head, and we get our partner slightly off balance. Nothing crazy, okay, but I just want to have an assertion with my grips. And when you touch someone, they're like, oh, fuck, this is a problem, I have to deal with this. My partner posts in my head, boom. Now we harass the feet. My partner takes a collar tie, like so. Whenever I go to clear a collar tie, you can do it in a few ways. What I can't do is with any of these, I can't look at my partner and try to push her arm into my head. You have to go chin to chest to clear the collar tie off. Now we can do this in a couple of ways. We can V-grip our partner's wrist, and as she gets to keep a collar tie, we can tuck chin to chest and clear that grip off. Now we can immediately go into arm drag situations. We can V-grip the wrist and immediately go into 2-on-1 elbow situations. We can use elbow passes where I take a grip of my partner's tricep and elbow and pass the elbow by and then move right to a 2-on-1. We can move down to the wrist and go into arm drags. We can do all kinds of things. If my partner is grabbing my hands, for example, she wants to grab a hand in a collar tie maybe, I'm always stripping a grip first. So I strip the grip in the wrist first, and now from here, we go and passing the elbow by, moving. We're always fighting to win these gripping exchanges. She goes to grab my hand now and go to strip my grip off. I switch to the cross grip. Now peel, we have a 2-on-1. Now we have a 2-on-1, now she goes to peel my wrist off, I can start passing elbows by or repommeling my hand. So as she frees her left elbow, we go back into arm drags. My partner can go to grab my ankles, and we can come in, grab my partner's arm, and slide down to the wrist. Now getting that subtle off-balancing effect. She can go to grab my ankles. We can go 2-on-1. The key is to pommel one leg free first, so my right leg comes out. We pommel around in a circular motion. And now I pop my partner's arm off in this direction. I take my heel to my butt, so when she goes to hold my left leg tight. And now we can go into harassing our partner's feet and upper body. We can use drags as she goes to grab my ankles. And initially, pulling my partner forward, subtle off balance, right leg comes out. Left heel comes to my butt as I pop the wrist out in this direction, and then right back in the other direction to get her stepping. So if we're in a race, as she goes to lift my feet up, as we both go, it's difficult. Okay? If her hands are just dangling around here, she's not really doing anything, then we can go in and we can grab a snatch a 2-on-1. If she grabs my wrist, I can peel her grip off and go 2-on-1 wrist. When I have a downward facing 2-on-1, what I don't want is to get overextended in this position. Okay? The way that I keep a strong grip on my partner without her pulling away and yanking, and then freeing her hand is by making sure that my two elbows connect to my hips and my chin stays over my own hands. So my partner goes to pull away from me, I can walk along that with my partner and then go in and start knocking her over. Okay? These are some of the very common situations you find yourselves in. Now, let's look at how we can enter into ashigarami from these positions. Whenever my partner goes to make a grip where I'm going to take an upward facing 2-on-1, we're going to initially take her out of balance like so. So right now, I have control of her right side of her body through her left shoulder. Now I have to have diagonal control ranging from the right shoulder down to the left hip. So I come in, I get her initially, her weight leaning forward, and now I use a combination of me pulling over my head and scooting my hips towards my heels to get her moving forward. What I don't want is for my partner for me to enter into ashigarami and a skilled opponent to immediately V-grip my right leg, and as I go to pull her and she backsteps, and now I'm past and I'm bottom knee on belly, bottom side control, what have you. That's why it's crucial for me to have diagonal control ranging from my partner's right shoulder down to the left hip. Okay? So the second she goes to take an upward facing 2-on-1, or she goes to take a grip of my head or a collar tie, whatever the case is, I get an upward facing 2-on-1. And I have that initial off balancing effect. Now my left foot comes inside my partner's 2 feet. And as I pull her forward, I make a sticky hook with my right leg behind my partner's left hamstring. And this is what gives me the ability to bridge off my left leg and throw my partner out in this direction. So that as she goes to backstep past my legs, they can immediately put an ashigarami into place and go into an immediate kazushi, where now, as she when she goes to backstep, we can immediately set our partner down, switch to X guard, or do whatever we need to from here. Okay? So it's a series of very subtle kazushis leading to my eventual attack. So we go upward facing 2-on-1. We initially put a kazushi and we get our weight leaning forward. Now we go essentially foot to foot. As I come forward, I have to get her stepping. What I don't want is just to come through, try to slide in, and then she backs up past my legs. So we hook in, shoelaces to hamstring. Here. Now I bridge off my left foot and I lift with my right foot as I pull overhead with hands. Now the concave shoulders come into play. My hips fire up. When you have that ashigarami in place, ready to go. Okay, so what this will look like is my partner goes in with the 2-on-1, or in with the post in the head. I go upward facing 2-on-1. Just push me backwards. We throw everything into position. Okay? Same thing with a elbow 2-on-1. My partner, I get an elbow 2-on-1 from whatever position. My partner grabs my ankles maybe, my partner takes a collar tie maybe, and we're in here. Now, we go in, we go foot to foot. As I go to take my partner forward, this time, instead of pulling overhead, I'm just pulling forward. My elbows to my hips to get her leaning forward. So her weight goes from her heels to her toes. And then all in one motion, as my hips scoot underneath my partner's, my right leg takes my partner forward. And then we throw our ashigarami into place. So with an upward facing 2-on-1 and an elbow 2-on-1, we come in. Okay? From this position, we go foot to foot, we pull our partner forward, we get diagonal control through the 2-on-1 and the far leg, and we're ready to go in. Same thing with an arm drag. We come through, my partner goes to grab my ankles maybe, we strip the grip, we go drag. Now from here, we pull her hand to my right hip, we put the left foot on the floor, now we use our right leg off balance my partner, up and over. So she goes to grab my ankles, immediately put forward pressure on her partner, and we get her stepping. Now we come in, we drag the arm across, we throw everything into place. So with a upward facing 2-on-1, an elbow 2-on-1, and an arm drag, we have very similar entrances. With a downward facing 2-on-1, it's a little bit different. Okay? The downward facing 2-on-1, we already have elbows connected to our hips. So it's hard to pull my partner out in this direction. So from here, as my partner goes to move away from me, we're just gonna walk towards our partner. Now we're gonna reach for our partner's leg with our left hand. And as we reach for the leg with our left hand, we're gonna take our right foot and catch like so. Now, instead of going two elbows to hips, now I have a staggered stance. Right here, it's hard for me to pull both of my elbows back past the line of my hips. But when I move to grip on my partner's leg, this gives me the ability now to use my right hand to pull my elbow further past my hips to get my partner leaning forward. And now from this position, we can kick our partner forward with an initial kazushi and throw everything into place. So we go into a downward facing 2-on-1 this time. My partner goes to pull away from me. We walk our 2 feet in. Now we catch the false grip, a 90-degree bend in our wrist. Like the gymnasts used to do kips and things like that. We catch wrist deep on our partner's knee. Now from here, we use a combination of a pulling with our right hand and a lifting action in combination with a bridge with our left foot to send our partner forward. And now concave shoulders come up. We throw ashigarami into place, and we're ready to go. So the downward facing 2-on-1 is a little bit different. It's hard for me to get my partner moving in this direction. It's kind of awkward from here. So as she goes to pull back and away, if she doesn't pull away from me, and she just stays here, then I just pull my partner in square. I can grab 2 legs, I can knock her down and go into Hachigurami. She has no choice but to start pulling away from me and start to peel my grips off. The second I see her go to address my grips or go to back away heavily, we just follow, and then we move in here. And then we pull, and we enter in, and we're ready to go. Okay, so there's some basic Hachigurami entrances, the mechanics with 2-on-1s, and ideas of where we should be trying to go once we do establish grips in our partner's hands and wrists. All right, so we're back to the basic idea. When the upper body moves away from us, we go right to the lower body. All right, so this time we're gonna have an opponent standing over us in a squared stance, just like before, and we're gonna use these various 2-on-1s and drags to go into a double koichi when our opponent pulls away from us. Okay, so whether we take an upward facing 2-on-1, our opponent goes to pull away, we shoot in, and we go double koichi. We go downward facing 2-on-1, our partner pulls away, double koichi. We go 2-on-1 elbow, our partner pulls away, double koichi. We go drag, our partner pulls away, double koichi. Okay, there's a slight variations, but they're all relatively the same. Okay, our partner goes, she poses my head, and I go upward facing 2-on-1. From this position, as my partner goes to pull away, we use our 2 feet in like so, and we use a combination of our hands pulling up over our head and our heels coming to our butt to hop our butt in towards our partner. Now, because we don't really have any ability to push our partner, if I just push like this, my partner's elbow just bends, and you can't move your partner's body and get her momentum going back and away from you. Right? So as my partner goes to pull away from me, I'm going to pull up and over my head, scoot in like so, and now I'm going to push on my partner's 2 legs as we did before. Right now, because we're in a symmetrical position, you can pretty much pick your hip on the way in. All right, if you want to land on your right hip and use a right leg action leg, that's fine. If you want to land on your left hip and use a left leg action leg, that's fine. Okay, so my partner goes in. We go upward facing 2-on-1. As she goes to pull away, we hop through, and we go double koichi. This time, we have a downward facing 2-on-1. My partner goes to pull away from me, and from here, we can go in, and we, again, as she goes to pull away, we let go. We push in the legs, we go double koichi. When we have a 2-on-1 elbow, it's a little bit different. We have a choice now of 1, letting go and going to our partner's legs, or 2, pushing the elbow towards my partner. Okay, you see how with a 2-on-1 wrist, if I push the arm in any direction, there's no real ability to off balance my partner. Same thing with the upward facing 2-on-1. But when I have an elbow combined with the wrist, now when I go to push my partner backwards, you can get real reactions. Okay, so with a 2-on-1, you can come in and push your partner backwards. If I have my partner's right arm, I typically have a right leg action leg. Okay, so we go from diagonal control, ranging from, again, the right shoulder down to the left leg. So I control my partner's left right arm and right side of the body, and then from here I take my partner's left foot out and away. And this, again, pulls me up into good passing positions. Okay, so when we have a 2-on-1 elbow, it's a little bit different. I can't really off balance my partner from 2-on-1 wrist. But when I have a 2-on-1 elbow, as she goes to pull away, we have the choice of coming in and picking a side and going in and off balancing a partner, or as she goes to pull away, we hop in, and now as we go to take our partner's leg out, we push the elbow back into my partner's body and take the foot out like so. This time, she's standing up over us. When we go into a drag grip, as my partner goes to pull out and away, we take our partner's foot out like so, and we pull pulling the arm towards us to get a strong pullback reaction. And we just take our partner's foot out, and now we can go into attacks right from there. Okay, so typically when we have control of two ends of the lever with a drag or 2-in-1 elbow, we can stay with our grip and we can go into attacking our partner's feet with this grip, because we can use these grips to start putting backwards pressure on our partner. We have control of one end of the lever with a downward facing 2-on-1 or an upward facing 2-on-1. We typically let go of the hands, let them pull back, and then go in and set our partner down. Okay? So when we have just the wrist, we go double kuichi to the legs. When we have the elbow and the wrist, or the wrist and the armpit, then we generally push with the hands and pull with the feet. All right, so now things are starting to get a little bit interesting. All right, whenever we fail with double kuichi, the only way that we can fail is for my partner to step one leg back and have a staggered stance. And that always presents at least one leg to me. All right, so what we're looking to do is to harass our partner's feet with either grips or no grips to get them stepping back and away to form a connection. Right now, like we talked about, we're in an area where we can't really grip our partner. Okay, we're in this kind of gray area where if she switches her stance, she can shoot past my legs. If I go into any kind of double kuichi, whether it's with grips or no grips, and I fail and my partner steps one leg back, now we have one leg that's weighted and we can always have access to this lead leg. The second this leg goes a step away from me, from whatever grips are in place, the second her leg goes a step away from me, I go to fail double kuichi, I immediately come in and we go shin to shin. Okay? So this has to be an ingrained habit. Whenever you see your partner start with a square stance, you try to go double kuichi and one leg steps back, you should always be making contact in some way with a second leg. Whether we're in here, whether we're in here, you can do all kinds of things. But the second your partner's leg steps away from you and you fail double kuichi, just know you always have one leg available now. And you should always be going in with the shin to shin position, where we can go in and start to attack our partner from here. When we enter in, we always want 2 feet inside of our partner's 2 legs, a false grip over our partner's calf muscle, and now from here we're ready to go. And we can do a variety of different things from here, off balancing our partner, moving into our partner's legs, and attacks we'll look at after this. All right, so now we're going to be looking at a single kuichi off of a shin to shin entrance. All right, so for whatever reason, my partner's standing up. We're shin to shin. Maybe failed the kuichi, and now from here we're going to look to go into a single kuichi to knock our partner down. All right, what my partner wants is to get her center line misaligned with ours and her far leg away from me. What I want is to expose the center line and get to that far leg, whether it be to enter into ashigarami or knock my partner down. From this position, I want to get my partner's rear leg stepping. The way that I do this is by planting my left hand, in this case, on the floor and just shucking my partner out in this direction. As I take my partner's leg out in this direction, we can catch our partner's leg in one of 2 ways. We can wait for her to step and put a blocker behind my partner's leg and then push on the inside of my partner's thigh and send my partner falling back to the floor. Or 2, we can catch her as she's stepping and we can physically pull the foot to a position further than where she was expecting to step. So as she goes to walk, and we knock our partner down to the floor by pushing on the inside of both legs. Okay? So we're in a position where I get shin to shin and now I have to get this rear leg coming towards me. So I plant my hand on the floor and get her moving. I can either 1, catch like this. Okay, it's not going to be perfect every time. Sometimes you're going to try to catch it in the air and you're going to miss it, right? They're both very effective. If you catch it in the air, it just looks spectacular, right? But both are very good. If you catch her foot after she steps, then I take my right hand and I just push on the inside of the thigh and I knock my partner back and over the 2 blockers, okay? If I catch her as she's stepping, it's essentially you have an action foot. With one of these moves, you have a support foot here, where both feet are stationary and you block. And the other one, where you're catching as she steps, you have an action leg. So you're pulling along the mat. So you get her moving, and and we pull ourselves up, and now we're ready to go. Okay? Now, there's always going to be a time where you don't knock your partner down. The only way that your partner cannot fall down from this position is to immediately split the legs. The reason for this is because as I go to push, like so, I have a wedge on the inside of my partner's leg and a wedge on the outside of my partner's leg with my ankle. So there's tension that runs through my partner's leg. So when she tries to pommel her foot to the inside position, she can't, it's stuck. I'm pushing with my right hand, I'm pulling with my right foot from the inside and the outside. So there's no leg pommeling here. If she tries to pommel either one of her legs, she can't. I can always knock my partner down. All right? The only thing she can do is she can move into a position where she points her knees in the same direction. Right now, both of her knees point towards me. She has to make both of her knees point away from me and move into like almost like she's moving into a side split. Here, where now it's hard to knock my partner over. If she takes a collar tie on me, she grabs a tricep maybe, it's difficult to push my partner over, and she's leaning all the way forward. I can't push her back and up and over. Whenever I see this, I just take my two knees together, I pull my center of gravity underneath my partner, and I send her forwards. Again, what I want is to get an initial kazushi. So I take two hands to the knees. So initially I was pushing, now I'm pull, and as I scoot in, I bump my partner forward with my right leg, and now we're into an ashigurami, ready to go into attacks on our partner. Okay? So whenever I see that this single kuichi fails, we just go right back underneath and we go into our partner's leg. So either she's going backwards or I'm coming forwards and going underneath her. So we have three great attacks here. One, we have two really, with just slight variations. One is I catch, I block my partner's leg, and we push. Two is we catch her as she's stepping. We knock my partner backwards. Three is as we catch her, she ends up in this position where she's in a split. And now as I go to push, she grabs a collar tie maybe, and I can't get my partner back and away. From this position, I take two knees together, and now as I come in, left leg bridges, right leg goes to my partner's far hamstring. I get an initial kazushi, pulling my partner forwards. Then we throw everything into place, and now we're ready to go into attacks with ashigurami on our partner's legs. Okay, so this is a single koichi off of being shin to shin with our partner. Next, we'll look at an ashigurami entrance right from shin to shin. Okay. All right, so now let's look at the actual mechanics of entering into an ashigurami from a shin to shin position. All right, one of the biggest complaints I get whenever I teach is people say, whenever I try to enter into an ashigurami, especially on a bigger person, I go to pull my partner in, and as I pull them in, they either drive their knee to my hip, and they move into a knee slice, and then my foot slips off when I'm getting my guard pass, or I pull my partner's knee right into my sternum, and I feel like I can't do anything from this position. Let's keep something in mind. When I want to enter into an ashigurami, my goal is to expose my partner's center line as best as possible. All right, so actually, in this direction. Is to rotate, is to expose my partner's center line best as possible, okay? The way that I do that is the same thing we looked at in the last movement. Is we take a hand to the floor and we get our partner moving by creating a shuck over this shoulder and getting our far leg to step towards me. Okay. Now, is she gonna stay there forever? No, that's fine. All I have to do is get closer to my partner's center line. All right. I put my hand on the floor and I get her stepping forwards. Now the key is that I don't fall straight down to my back. What I want is to create a weightless leg. I want to create a weightless right leg in this case. So all the weight comes off of this leg. The only way that I can do this is by putting my partner's hands on the floor or putting all of her weight onto this leg. Okay, there's no other way to do it. The way that I do that is by falling down to my hip and shoulder and chasing my partner's far heel with my head. If you can have the goal in mind of connecting, you're not going to connect it, but if you have the goal in mind of connecting your head to your partner's far heel, you'll always create a weightless leg and the entrance will be very easy. So as I fall down to my left shoulder and my head chases my partner's far heel, this will always either do one of two things. Force your partner to hop on this leg completely or put her hands to the floor. If her hands go to the floor, it'll look like this. Okay? If her hands stay off the floor, it'll look like this, and it should be hopping. Okay, either way, we have a weightless right leg now. Most of the time, your opponent's hands will go to the floor. At post, I put the hands to the floor initially. Now, as I fall down to my shoulder, my head now is almost connected to my partner's far heel. Now that I have a weightless right leg, I move from my right hip to flat on my back. And now what do we have? A direct alignment of my center line and her center line. A weightless right leg and my foot to the inside. Now, as I shoot my left leg through, I pull my partner's right foot to the outside of my hip, and we're in position. Make sure, again, that your right knee stays into your chest. If your right knee at any point comes away from your chest, in the transition, you pull yourself into bottom mount. I have a wedge down between myself and my partner with concave shoulders. When she goes to drop down into me, I can take my knee to my partner's near hip. Make sure that your knee stays at your partner's near hip and not your partner's far hip. If you put your knee in your partner's far hip and she drops her right knee to the floor, now you're in half guard. If you put your partner's knee on the near hip and she goes to drop to her knee, you can always make space and throw your foot up into place. Now we can go into all of our attacks. Okay, so the mechanics of entering into an ashigarami from this position is hit an initial kazushi and create a weightless leg. Whatever leg you're connected to, the lead leg, you have to create a weightless leg first and align your center lines. Okay, so your specific goals from this position is to create a weightless leg and align my center line with hers. She's smart right now. She doesn't have her center line anywhere near mine. Her far leg's away from me. If her leg was towards me and she was square, then I could just grab two of her legs like in the beginning and scoot into an ashigarami. But this is not the case here. So I have to get this far leg stepping towards me. So I post on the floor, far leg comes towards me. Now I have to create a weightless leg. I'm closer to the center line yet, but I'm not completely there. So I create a weightless leg. So from here I take my head, I fall down to my shoulder, and I chase my partner's far heel. Now I have a weightless leg, and now our center lines are aligned. My right knee stays into my chest. So as my partner goes to crush me, I pull the foot to the outside, and now I bring my knee to my partner's near hip. We have an ashigarami in place, and we're ready to go. All right, so we're in position. We're shin to shin. We pull our partner's leg, get my partner's leg stepping forward. Now as we rotate underneath, we throw our leg into position. Now we're ready to put our partner into various types of attacks right from there. Okay, so the specific mechanics on how to enter into an ashigarami when you have a shin to shin position.